Hi, I'm Zoe. I want to tell you about something amazing that happened to me. It changed my life forever, and I hope it will touch your heart too. I never thought I'd die when I was only 12 years old, but there I was, lying in a hospital bed. I felt weaker every minute. The doctors said I had a rare disease. They tried everything, but nothing worked. My parents were crying next to me, holding my hands. I wanted to tell them not to be sad, but I couldn't speak. My eyes felt heavy, and then everything went dark. Suddenly, I felt light as a feather. I opened my eyes and saw that I was floating above my body. It was so strange. I could see my parents and the doctors around my bed. They looked really upset. I wanted to tell them I was okay, but they couldn't hear me. It was like I was invisible. Then, something incredible happened. A bright light appeared in the corner of the room. It was the prettiest thing I'd ever seen. The light got bigger and brighter, and I felt drawn to it. As I got closer, I felt warm and happy. All my worries went away. I wasn't scared anymore. I floated into the light, and everything changed. I found myself in the most beautiful garden I've ever seen. The colors were brighter than anything on earth. The grass was the greenest green, and the flowers were every color you can imagine. Some colors I'd never seen before. The air smelled sweet, like a mix of flowers and fresh bread. I heard soft music playing. It sounded like 1,000 angels singing. The music made me feel peaceful and loved. As I looked around, amazed by everything I saw, I noticed someone walking towards me. It was a man wearing a white robe that seemed to glow. His face was kind, and his eyes were full of love. I knew right away that this was Jesus. I'd seen pictures of him in church, but seeing him for real was different. He was more real than anything I'd ever known. Jesus smiled at me and said, "Welcome, my child. I've been waiting for you." His voice was gentle and warm. It made me feel safe and happy. I wanted to hug him, and as soon as I thought it, I was in his arms. It felt like the best hug ever, like all the love in the world was wrapped around me. Jesus took my hand, and we started walking through the garden. The grass felt soft under my feet, and each step made me feel stronger and healthier. We came to a big tree with golden fruit. Jesus picked one and gave it to me. "Eat," he said. "This is the fruit of life." I took a bite, and it was the yummiest thing I'd ever tasted. It was sweet and juicy, and it made me feel full of energy. As I ate, I remembered all the questions I had about heaven and God. I wanted to know everything. "Jesus," I said, "can I ask you some questions?" He smiled and nodded. "Of course, my child. What would you like to know?" I thought for a moment. There were so many things I wanted to ask, but one question stood out. "When will the world end?" I asked. Jesus looked at me with kind eyes. "That's a big question," he said. "It's not something to be afraid of, but something to look forward to. It means I'll be coming back to earth to make everything right." I nodded, trying to understand. "But how will we know it's happening?" Jesus smiled. "There will be signs," he said. "People will hear about wars and natural disasters. Many will turn away from God, but those who love God should not be afraid. They should be ready and keep doing good things." "What happens after the world ends?" I asked. "After that," Jesus said, "there will be a new heaven and a new earth. All the bad things will be gone. There will be no more sadness, pain, or death. Everyone who loves God will live with him forever." I thought about that for a while. It sounded amazing, but I still had more questions. "What about the people who don't believe in God?" I asked. Jesus looked sad for a moment. "God loves everyone and wants everyone to be with him, but he also gives people the choice to love him back. Those who choose not to be with God will be separated from him. That's why it's important to tell others about God's love while there's still time." I nodded, feeling the importance of what Jesus was saying. "So what should we do while we're waiting for the world to end?" I asked. Jesus smiled brightly. "Live your life with love," he said. "Love God with all your heart and love others as you love yourself. Help people who are in need. Forgive those who hurt you. Pray and read the Bible to know God better. And always remember that I am with you, even when you can't see me." We walked some more through the beautiful garden. I saw other people there too. They all looked happy and peaceful. Some were singing, others were talking and laughing. It felt like one big happy family. As we walked, I saw a big book on a golden stand. It was the biggest book I'd ever seen. "What's that?" I asked. "That's the book of life," Jesus said. "It has the names of all the people who love God and follow Him." I was curious. "Is my name in there?" Jesus smiled and nodded. "Yes, it is. And so are the names of many others, but there's still room for more." We kept walking and came to a crystal clear river. The water sparkled like diamonds. "This is the river of life," Jesus said. "Its water gives life to everything in heaven." I bent down and touched the water. It felt cool and refreshing. When I stood up, I felt even stronger and happier than before. As we walked along the river, I saw many animals. There were lions playing with lambs and eagles soaring in the sky. None of the animals seemed scared or hungry. They all looked peaceful and content. "In heaven," Jesus explained, "all of creation lives in harmony. There's no fighting or hurting each other here." We came to a big, beautiful city. The walls were made of precious stones, and the streets were paved with gold. But the gold was clear like glass. I could see my reflection in it. "This is the New Jerusalem," Jesus said. "It's where God lives with His people." The city was full of light. There was no sun or moon, but everything was bright. Jesus explained that God's glory gives light to the whole city. As we walked through the city, I saw many people I recognized from Bible stories. There was Moses, David, and Mary. They all smiled and waved at me. I felt so happy to be among them. We came to a big throne in the center of the city. It was more beautiful than anything I'd ever seen. "This is God's throne," Jesus said. "From here He rules with love and justice." I looked at the throne in awe. I could feel God's presence all around me. It was overwhelming, but in a good way. I felt completely loved and accepted. As we stood there, I heard voices singing. It was the most beautiful music I'd ever heard. Angels and people were praising God together. The sound filled me with joy, and I wanted to join in. Jesus looked at me and said, "It's almost time for you to go back." I felt sad. I didn't want to leave this wonderful place. "Do I have to?" I asked. Jesus nodded. "Yes, my child, you still have work to do on earth. People need to hear about God's love. You can tell them what you've seen here." I understood, but I was still a little scared. "Will it hurt to go back?" I asked. Jesus hugged me again. "No, it won't hurt. And remember, I'll always be with you, even when you can't see me." He took my hand, and we started walking back through the garden. As we walked, Jesus gave me one last piece of advice. "Remember," he said, "no one knows when the world will end. But that's not the most important thing. What's important is how you live each day. Love God, love others, and be ready for when I come back." I nodded, feeling both brave and scared at the same time. "I'll do my best," I promised. As we reached the edge of the garden, Jesus gave me one last hug. "I love you, Zoe," he said. "Go and share my love with others." Then everything started to fade. The beautiful colors of heaven became blurry, and I felt myself floating again. Suddenly I was back in my body in the hospital bed. I opened my eyes and saw my parents looking at me. They were crying, but this time they were happy tears. The doctors looked surprised and amazed. "She's awake," someone shouted. "It's a miracle." I felt weak, but I was alive, and I knew I had an important job to do, to share what I had learned with others. Over the next few days, I got stronger. The doctors couldn't explain how I had recovered. They called it a medical miracle, but I knew the truth. I had been to heaven and back. I told my parents and the doctors about what I had seen. Some believed me and some didn't, but that was okay. I knew what I had experienced was real. As I got better and went back home, I started to see the world differently. Everything seemed more beautiful. I appreciated the little things more, the way the sun shone through the leaves, the sound of birds singing, the taste of my favorite foods. I also started to notice people more. I saw how some people were sad or hurting, and I wanted to help them. I remembered what Jesus had said about loving others, and I tried to do that every day. At school, I told my friends about my experience. Some of them thought it was cool, while others weren't sure what to think, but I didn't mind. I just wanted to share the love and peace I had felt in heaven. I started volunteering at a local shelter, helping people who didn't have homes. It made me happy to see their smiles when I gave them food or just talked to them. I remembered how Jesus had said to help those in need, and it felt good to do that. I also started reading the Bible more. The stories seemed more real to me now that I had seen some of the people from them. I especially liked reading about heaven and Jesus. It reminded me of my time there and helped me feel close to God. Sometimes when things were hard or I felt sad, I would close my eyes and remember the beautiful garden in heaven. I would think about Jesus' kind face and his warm hug. It always made me feel better. As I grew older, I never forgot my experience. It shaped everything I did. I tried to live each day with love, just like Jesus had taught me. I told my story to anyone who would listen, hoping it would help them feel God's love too. Now, I'm not scared of the future or even of dying. I know that heaven is real and that Jesus is waiting for all of us who love him. I try to live each day as if it might be my last, doing good things and showing love to others. I hope my story has touched your heart. Remember, God loves you more than you can imagine. He's always with you, even when you can't see him. And one day, if you choose to follow him, you'll get to see the amazing things I saw in heaven. Until then, let's live each day with love, helping others, and sharing God's love with everyone we meet. Because in the end, that's what really matters. Now that you have seen what the end of the world looks like, you have to watch about a woman who asked Jesus if aliens can be saved. Click the video on your screen now to hear this shocking account, and we'll see you in the next video.